Amidst the scramble for growing Africa's footprints, we've got FNB having been granted a license by the Tanzania's central bank. How does this fit into FirstRand's African strategy?
Well, I think that the FirstRand group has got a very strong strategy with regard to Africa. We intend to become a very large player in the African space, and Tanzania forms part of that program. In recent times, we've seen the expansion of the group into Botswana, Swaziland, more recently Lesotho, even more recently Mozambique in 2007, and 2 years ago FNB Zambia was established as well. I think it celebrates its second birthday on the 1st of April. So Tanzania is just a logical extension of that. But not only is it not only does it fit the FirstRand strategy of expanding into Africa, but also, I mean, there are compelling reasons for us to be investing in Tanzania anyway. It has a large population, which is unbanked as well, a large unbanked population. Its GDP growth rate has been consistently strong. Inflation is under control. It's politically stable as well. So there are many compelling reasons for us to invest in Tanzania in its own right.
Looking at this Tanzanian operation, I mean, what exactly are we looking at here? Organic greenfields operations or growth via partnership, which some say is more viable when entering African markets? Well,
we are entering as a greenfields operation, but that doesn't exclude the possibility that other opportunities may arise. But the initial phase is definitely a greenfields operation, exactly what it was like in Zambia.
Run us through some of the challenges in setting up a greenfields operation in the continent, because obviously we've got the maturity of the markets to consider, and some would say it would be considerably easier to set up shop in a place like Tanzania as opposed to Kenya, for example, on the east coast.
Yes, you're right. There are many challenges. I mean, I remember you'd have sleepless nights wondering when your first income would actually come in. You know, you're starting with a base. You've got absolutely no income streams, whether they be interest or non-interest revenue. But in my mind, the challenge that faces us is that we are building a bank now, which is ultimately going to be a very big bank in Tanzania. In the Tanzania market, it will be a substantial player within a relatively short period. But the biggest challenge in actually setting up an operation is making sure that we get and then keep the right people. Because if we've got the right people working in our organization, I mean, that's half the job done.
Well, you speak about this muscle being built, and we know that we shouldn't be expecting to see earnings being boosted immediately, that these take time. It takes time before they become significant contributors to the company's profits. But where the perception is that FirstRand remains focused on South African banking models, 90% of the earnings coming through from South African operations. How do you see this expansion and this strategy tipping the scales, let's say, in the next 5 years?
Well, I don't think it will tip the scales in the next 5 years, but certainly if you take the contribution that the FNB African subsidiaries had 5 years ago compared to what it is today, I mean, there has been a considerable improvement. I'm not quite up to speed with the numbers from 5 years ago, but I know that it now, as at interim stage, we were contributing 10% of profits, which is a fairly significant amount in the group. And I see that as growing. I mean, we have got a lot of our African subsidiaries at the moment are still in very strong growth phases. I mean, we're talking about Mozambique, Zambia, Tanzania coming on board, even Lesotho to a certain extent. So they are in growth phases, and they will then start contributing once they actually reach a level of maturity.
Richard, how do you rate the risk that you're taking on here, entering a territory like Tanzania?
I mean, the risks in banking are generally universal as far as we are concerned. I mean, provided we have the right risk management policies in place, we believe that they are manageable.
So entering a well-regulated sector as you see it, because given the clarity on Basel III that still is being anticipated, we know banks were expected to hold back a bit on their expansion strategies, especially on a market like the continent.
Yeah. Bearing in mind the size of our group, though, I think that the investments that we are doing are relatively small compared to the size of the FirstRand group. But notwithstanding that, I mean, we are We do go in with our eyes open. We assess all the risks and that we are going to be faced with and build the business case accordingly.